live and we can move from our own life into a neighboring one. Still our own, with almost the same people around you, you can cross over. But the states there will be different. Everything will be evaluated differently there. And your successes might not be successes at all, but instead you might have all sorts of problems in your life. And so once I jumped rather unsuccessfully into a neighboring life, and now I don't know how to find my way back. But you can't jump back. Do you understand? I didn't know that you can't jump back. You see? You have to learn everything. Wow, a scientist doctor has been accused of treason because Norwegian intelligence could have read his materials. So, what is this, friends? It's like we're in some kind of wonderland. After all, there must have been something they needed from that scientist in St. Petersburg in the treason case. A scientist has been arrested. Dr. Alexei Dudarev, Chief Research Fellow at the Federal Budgetary Institution of Science, Northwest Scientific Center for Hygiene and Public Health, Rospotrebnadzor, Doctor of Medical Sciences. The scientist was detained on January 14, 2026, on his way to work. A search was conducted in his apartment. Dudarev has been charged with treason, Article 275 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation. He will remain in pretrial detention until March 13th. The charges are based on Dudarev's publications in open international scientific journals of the Arctic program. Yes, friends, where he appeared as a co-author? That's how it is. Just a regular Arctic program Institute of Hygiene. What could he have possibly said in open sources that they charged him with treason, huh? They hung it on him like a yoke. They pinned it on him. So the Norwegian intelligence, which supposedly could read this scientist, will be absolutely thrilled by the kind of information they were given. Everyone read it, all the peoples read it, the peoples of the world. The Arctic is actually quite an important area in our lives today. Well, in our lives, the Arctic doesn't really play a part. But in Putin's life, he created a new state there. And everyone rushed there. Everyone who is now listed as dead, deceased, they're all there. And what do you think? Should one try to get there? So, what was Zhirinovsky supposed to say? Haha, adieu, right? No, he died. Officially, he died. Where is Berezovsky? Officially, he died. He hanged himself with a pink scarf. But that's just mocking the people. Or do you want to make fun of Berezovsky? No, I think it's Berezovsky. He came up with that kind of death for himself to tell the whole world that he hanged himself with a pink scarf. He took it from his girlfriend. All the rest are the same. And where is Rogozin? Dima Rogozin, Roscosmos, where is he? He's there too, they're all there. See how interesting life turns out? And what are we fighting over, you and I? You and I aren't fighting over anything. What we're arguing about is who's smarter and who's dumber. Who's a Soviet type and who's not. And all of this is just so ridiculous and so primitive. And then we're surprised that there's no house spirit. We're surprised that it's possible to move to another dimension. You haven't crossed over, but I have. I have crossed over. You can jump from one life to another, friends. And it doesn't always end well. For example, I jumped into my neighboring life. I have a video called 33 Lives We Live. 33 Lives We Live. Check out my old videos, take a look. We live and we can move from our own life to a neighboring one. You cross over with almost the same people around you. But the circumstances there will be different and everything will be evaluated differently. And your successes might not be successes at all, but instead all sorts of problems in life. And once I jumped unsuccessfully into a neighboring life. And I don't know how to find my way back. But you can jump back. Do you understand? I didn't know you couldn't jump back. See? You have to learn everything. You can jump into a neighboring life. Another life, right? There are 33 worlds after all. And we have to visit all 33 of them. So you can jump over by your own will. Who knows? What's in that neighboring life? but what if you jump and end up in the wrong place and find yourself like Akaki Akakievich in a mess? And what will we do then? No, I don't want that. And so I'm thinking, what should I do next? And I was left like a blind hen, completely lost. Instead of my diamond-studded life, all glamorous and full of likes, well, I don't know. When you've been lucky your whole life, right? You jump into the neighboring one, and there they start to hassle you, to bully you, to take things away from you, something like that. And as a result, you end up from being this golden, diamond, bright, cosmic girl, you turn into someone, who just gets hit with a sledgehammer. Nobody wants that, right? Well, I managed to fight back, moved on to a different life, of course, but it's different. Yes, it's already a different life. So I had to... Quantum transitions, my friends, who has them? Well, tell us, how do you make the jump? So I'm telling you how I make the jump. I jumped once, I jumped twice. We have this secret place. It's located where the central market is. You know Moz? Moz, the one at the central market. I used to live there, actually. But when the quantum leap happened, I wasn't living there anymore. I was just passing by with my driver in my Range Rover. There weren't any in Moscow back then, especially Range Rovers. And everyone thought, ugh, what a car, ugh, what a car. But we had these, those little cubes, the ones that were given to Yeltsin's team. And everyone there was a drunk, so it was good enough for them. They didn't even realize what they were sitting in. Well, the pretty Mercedes G-Wagon, which was easy to flip over. It's not a smooth yacht after all. A Range Rover, right? No, the G-Wagon, the Mercedes, yes, the Geländewagen. Back then, they gave away a huge number of them, gave them to the presidential administration. Mercedes made that gesture. That gesture hit the mark exactly, and everyone there was uneducated, like our Korsakov. No, well, he's actually a very good guy, but he was just quite uneducated. I mean, he had never lived well before that. Everything was fine, but it was all Soviet style. But as for living well in the Western sense, they hadn't experienced that. And here everything was Western style. So everything is known by comparison. And now all of Moscow suddenly switched to Range Rovers. And it's considered a yacht, not a car. Yes, a Range Rover is a yacht. In fact, it is a yacht. Well, if it's not meant for you, it's not meant for you, my friends. This is the life that's given to you. So I was given one life, then a second, then a third. I've jumped several times in these quantum transitions, but as you can see, I don't know which is better. There was one place where I had a very beautiful quantum leap, but further, I don't know what comes next. Where else is there to jump? We'll jump, of course. We'll jump again. Did you think we wouldn't? Tell me about yours. How do you jump? How do you transition from life to life? Just don't tell me it's impossible. But for those who are primitive in mind, it is impossible. But for everyone else, if you want to, you can do it. You just need to understand it and do it under someone's guidance. And during a quantum leap, I myself didn't even know. In addition, it was located in front of one of the secret facilities in the area of the central market, passing under the bridge and hit. Like this. I am Tanya Karatsuba Sidi Burhan, February 6, 2020. Hello, it's me, Tanya Karatsuba Sidi Burhan. Today I will slightly open the curtain of sacred knowledge for you. 33 worlds we live in. There are 33 worlds around us. And in all 33 we live simultaneously, practically surrounded by the same people. Sometimes when we wake up, we don't know which world we've woken up in. Leaving the previous world, we completely forget about it as we move into a new one. Our worlds are like grapes on a vine. Each world is our life. Only the events unfold differently. In each world, the same event plays out with different variations. Completely opposite ones, one to the other. When you move from one world to another, you will see the same people but completely opposite relationships. Like in a theater, scenes are played out in different variations. There are 33 worlds around us. That's why the highest degree of initiation among the Masons is 33. Many would like to consciously travel from one world to another, and to understand how to correct the relationships around them and the social environment in order to achieve a better result. In each world we have our own lessons to learn, our own knowledge. Although I don't like these words or the system of fatalism, nevertheless, working through relationships does exist. All versions are played out. The transition from one world to another can happen not only in a dream, that's just an example. The transition from one world to another can happen while driving a car, during a flight on an airplane, or sitting on a bench in a park. It depends on your sensitivity, how well you can feel this transition and make it happen. You can see the transition in your mind, realizing that you've entered another world where everything is the same, yet at the same time everything is different. In the ancient Iranian language, there is the word Simurg, a king bird revered in ancient Iran as a supreme being. Simurg means that when 30 birds reach Mount Kyaf, together they become one. Simur, and each of them is a simur. In this way, the unity of 30 and 1 is revealed. This is what every initiate strives for. Why 30 and not 33? Because 30 is the foundation, the platform. The remaining 3 form a triangle, the pinnacle that is almost impossible to comprehend. These are special worlds that only the strongest spirits can enter. Look at a bunch of grapes. The last 3 berries are like the apex of a pyramid. If you look at the pyramid that Nicholas Roerich drew on the American dollar in 1911, you can see the resemblance between a bunch of grapes and a pyramid, a creation shaped by human hands, an initiate into mysteries. The poet Alexander Pushkin, in his tale of Tsar Sultan, writes, "And 30 handsome knights in succession emerge from the clear waters, and with them their sea uncle." In this context, uncle means the superstructure, the top of the pyramid. Of the 3, it is simpler, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. At the age of 14, Alexander Pushkin was initiated into the great sacred mystery. This happened in Crimea, on Mount Karadag, where at that time, in the 19th century, there stood a palace altar and where a beautiful maiden lived. This is the source of Pushkin's knowledge of mysteries. This is where his tales come from. Simurg is a single king who lives in 30 birds, and they all gather together as one only once on Mount Kaf. And Pushkin lived in the city of Kaffa, which is now Feodosia. Not far away. There was Mount Kaffa, where the Simurg would come. People lost their sacred knowledge. What they had, they did not preserve. And in those distant times, in order to try to gather themselves together, people would travel for knowledge and initiation to the altar of the Holy Maiden on Karadag.